I remember reading the book. I was on a flight. I was going to London, and I mean, I was a voracious reader as a kid, but I hadn't read a good fiction. I was reading more non-fiction. I still read more non-fiction. And someone recommended to me, and I read it, and I couldn't put it down. I finished. It's a very quick book. I finished it in 3 days, basically. I read, 1/3 on the flight, and the rest. I mean, first thing was my reaction. It made me laugh. It made me cry. I cried at the end of the book, but I laughed out loud at various points as well, and I was just like, blown away by. I don't know if you've all read the book. We had some things of the book in the movie, but what Arvind Adiga does, the genius of Arvind Adiga, is the concepts that he comes out with. For example, he talks about a half-baked man. So the driver is saying, "My master, Your Excellency, my master called me a half-baked man because I'm illiterate, but all my knowledge has come from newspapers, bhel puri packets, like lizards dropping from ceilings. Knowledge came into my head. So I am a half-baked man." And then he goes on to say, "But half-baked men like me become entrepreneurs, while fully baked men go and work for someone else." So this is one example of a concept that he had, a half-baked man. And the second example was the key concept in the book, which also ties a little bit to what Deepak was talking about as well, which is, he calls it the rooster coop in the movie and in the book. And he says that we all are trapped in a rooster coop that we can't escape. He talks about roosters in a giant cage, and someone keeps coming to kill them, but they can't escape. They know what's happening. They know that they're going to die, but they can't get out of it. And then you have to become the white tiger, basically. So I just loved the book. And of course, I knew at the time it had already been a big book. It had won the Booker Prize. It had sold 4 million copies worldwide. I found that a little later. It's very hard to find out the exact number of copies sold. You have to talk to 20 publishers and all, but I knew it was a big book. And it was very cinematic in my head. I love Delhi as well, and I could just see it as a movie. And I know that everyone says you can see this as a movie, but yeah, I could really see it as a movie, and I was like, I would like to make this into something international as well. Was interesting for me because this book was something that had resonated with the world. It wasn't an Indian story only. It was a global story. So I think that was interesting as well. Yeah.
So Mukul, this was a famous book by that time you began. Would you take our audience through what were the challenges to adapt a famous book, a popular book, to a movie?
Oh, sure. Well, in the beginning, it was very simple. Nobody wanted to make it. Literally nobody wanted to make it. I mean, also, the book was an incredible book. For me, I was obsessed by the book. I knew it by heart. I'd read it many, many times. And I wanted to do justice to the book. And for me, justice meant showing it to a global audience, which includes India, but it was not only India. It was very clear in my head from the beginning that I had to set it up on a global level. It wasn't only going to be an Indian story. Basically, it comes to, and this was something I did through the whole movie process, which was many years, because you have to develop, first you have to find the right team, then you have to develop the script, then you have to start shooting, edit, and release. So it's like 3, 4, 5 years. That's how long it can take, 5 years in this case. So I had a mantra in my head that I created, and I kept saying it. It wasn't in Sanskrit or anything like that. It was basically that this is a universal story that happens to be set in India. That's what I kept telling myself. It happens to be set in India. And that really helped me through the process. I mean, look, the book sold 4 million copies worldwide. It sold maybe a few 100,000 in India. So 90% of its audience was global. I had to find that middle ground to make sure it hit all those people and people in India by, repeating this mantra at all points through the journey, basically. Taking all the decisions. At all the decision-making points, this was what kept me, on course, basically. Because it was very hard to make it, to say, to your point, I mean, if I wanted to set it up in an Indian context, it would have been much easier, but I didn't want to do that. I went to LA, I spent a lot of time in LA. I think that's when AD was like, what are you doing? You're wasting your time in LA. And I was just some guy, like you read about running around with a book, you know what I mean? Like, here's my book, like some madman. And no one wanted to make it. Like, no one in LA wanted to make it. It's hard to imagine now because you see you see a movie is like a 3D, it's like a building, it's like this auditorium, it's a 3D space. But a book with an idea, with some guy running around is nothing. There's no Priyanka Chopra, there's no Rajkumar Rao, there's nothing there, you know what I mean? There's no Ramin. Yeah, so it was very, very hard, trying to make it, in the beginning, yeah.
So interestingly, when I was talking with Mukul to prepare for this, he shared that Arvind Adiga called him at one point. It was very unusual, and said to him that you really made a very good movie. It was better than the book. That's very rare for any author to think that. And fantastic job.